Hey Beauts, welcome to day 2 of 31 Days of Halloween on Pretty Scary, the channel where I bring you budget-friendly, easy-to-follow tutorials that you can do at home. And today we have Pennywise. If you haven't already seen the video where I show you how to make this epic mouth prosthetic, then I will link it below. And this is the application video. So if you'd like to know how to be a really scary Pennywise for this year's Halloween, then keep watching. I think Pennywise is definitely the look of 2017.
Just want to tell you something that I'm absolutely gutted about. Some of you may have noticed while I've been filming my tutorials that I have, or rather had, a tongue stud. I've had this for 20 years and absolutely loved it, and unfortunately I've had to take it out because it started to damage my lower gums, which had created a really painful infection. I had to have some dental treatment which made me feel like I'd been punched in the mouth. I decided very reluctantly that the best thing to do was to take it out, and I am gutted. I know this might sound really silly or really insignificant to some people, but when you've had something for that long and it's part of you and part of your identity, then it's not the best. Anybody else who's had to take out a piercing, let me know below and we can commiserate with one another.
I started off with just trying on this prosthetic because, well, I just had to. And then onto the bold cap. So first of all, I am wrapping my hair. This is the best way to conceal long hair under a bold cap. So you literally, as the name suggests, is just wrap your hair around your head and pin it as you go. If you've got particularly thick hair, you can also pin curl the crown so that you really get the bulk of your hair out the way and as flat to your head as possible. If you've got very unruly hair, you can also use some gel to really slick it down. I didn't really have to bother with that. I just kind of pinned it and then put on a little bit of hairspray. And then because Pennywise has got a big old forehead, I put a little bit of cotton wool in first, just before I put the bowl cap on. I got that technique from the lovely Ellie Max. Thank you again, Ellie Max. You've inspired a lot of techniques in this tutorial. And then I just put the bold cap on top and glued down the edges with some skin adhesive. When it comes to shaping the bowl cap around your ears, simply cut a slit and pull your ears through. I didn't quite cut my slit big enough, which meant that my ears were slightly sticking out, but that wasn't a problem because, yeah, it just wasn't an issue. Anyway, moving on to the brows, you want to block them out. I'm just blocking them out with the skin adhesive, a couple of layers, brushing through with this eyebrow comb, letting each one dry, and then powdering over those layers with some face powder and just brushing away the excess. And moving on to that clowny face, just stippling on some Clown White by Snazaroo with a flat foundation brush and blending around my eyes with a sponge. You also want to blend that over your ears and over the bold cap and go in particularly thick over your brows so they're nicely covered. And then I just stippled over the edges of my bold cap with some latex just to really blend that in. But don't worry too much about blending the edges, because the good thing about the Pennywise in It 2017 is he has this kind of crackly, sort of worn texture on his forehead. So I recreated that with just a couple of layers of toilet paper and just put some latex over the top, and that makes a nice job of covering up your edges. So whoever designed the makeup for Pennywise 2017, thank you for that one. And now I'm just checking how far the prosthetic goes up my face, because I will have to clean away some of that Clown White in a moment, which you shall see in just a second. But first of all, I'm just colouring it in my mouth so that it doesn't show through the prosthetic, just with a mix of red and black, and there I am with a baby wipe just cleaning away that excess Snazaroo Clown White, because if you try and put the glue on top of this it will not adhere properly. So put glue all around the edge of your prosthetic and also on your face. This kind of skin adhesive works better as a contact adhesive, so it's best if it's on your skin and on the prosthetic or whatever you're sticking to your face. So once the glue is on, make sure that dries clear so it goes tacky, and then stick your prosthetic on. Go over any loose edges with some more glue just to make sure they're really well stuck down, and then stipple some latex over the edge too. This helps to blend the edge into your skin, and it also helps to create that nice worn texture on the exposed skin that isn't covered by a prosthetic, bald cap or toilet tissue. I also use a little bit of latex and cotton wool just to blend the areas around my nose where the prosthetic wasn't quite sitting correctly. And then make sure all of that is dry. I then realised that actually my Pennywise was looking like a bit of a chinless wonder. Because of the size of the mouth, it was covering my real chin. So I just built up a fake chin with some latex and cotton wool. Once all the latex is dry, start stippling the Clown White over any areas that need colouring. I needed a little bit more drying time and decided to have a read while I did so. Right, now for some of the areas I decided to go in with a water-based paint because it's just a little bit easier to paint over the latex with that. So yeah, I used a mixture of the Clown White and the water-based white Snazaroo. Now this doesn't need to be even because Pennywise is looking a bit weathered and nasty and monstrous. So to weather him even more, I'm using a stipple sponge and some very, very watered down black water-based paint, and just going over the entire face with that, and using a brush to apply that a little bit more intensely in areas where I wanted a little darker. Now that I look like a moon with teeth, let's get on to adding the detail. Using a red mixed with a little bit of black, I went in on the eyes with a fluffy brush and then just blended that out a little. As with the rest of the face, you want this to look a bit kind of distressed and aged, and just do the same under the eye, bringing it down into a very rounded point. And then I made a start on the nose, again with the red mixed with a little bit of black, because you don't want too bright a red, you don't want it to look too clean. And I just painted in the shape of Pennywise's nose using a reference photograph. And then went in with a little bit of the Clown White just to blend that out a little because his nose isn't kind of cleanly painted on. And I also use a little bit of black just to deepen up underneath and add a bit of dimension. Blend that out also. It's a little bit tricky to paint the nose over the edges of the prosthetics, but just do your best. And then obviously Pennywise 2017 would not be Pennywise 2017 without the iconic red lines. It can be a little tricky to get these even and get them symmetrical, but just take your time and lean your elbow on your desk or your dressing table or whatever you're working at. And then just also paint in his lips too. When he's got this nice big wide stretched mouth, the top lip is quite thin and the bottom lip is a bit thicker, so just bear that in mind when you're painting it in. And then I just went in to any areas that need a little extra white because it kind of rubbed off a little bit. And then just neatened up the edges of the mouth with a very fine detailed art brush. Going in with a little bit of black under his eyes just to deepen those up a little bit. Blend that out. And then it's time for shading. So I'm going in with a grey eyeshadow and just shading in that kind of eyebrow shape that Pennywise has got. He hasn't really got a kind of painted in eyebrow, it looked more kind of part of his face contours, so that's why I did it like this. I went in with the grey eyeshadow, and then I did actually go in with some black body paint, but I will be blending that out in just a moment, which you shall see. There we go, blending it out so that it looks more like a contour rather than a painted on brow. And then with those same techniques I just continued on and added in other details onto Pennywise's face, such as his furrowed brow and his kind of bunched up cheeks from this massive great big sharp teeth filled smile he's got. Some expression lines underneath the smile too. Again, doing this over the prosthetic is a little bit tricky, the same as it was with the nose, but just do your best and keep going back in with deeper colours and blending it out until you're happy. Then I went in with my favourite shadow colour, which is Deep Night by Laura Mercier, and just deepened up the inner corners of the eyes and those bunchy bit on the cheeks, and then just the edges of the smile a little bit too, and those smile lines underneath the smile. He's also got this kind of detail in his eye socket, I want to call it. I'm not really sure, but you'll see what I mean if you look at a reference photograph, so I'm just adding that in too. And then just a little bit of depth along the upper lash line as well. After looking back at the reference pictures, I felt that the patches of red under his eyes weren't quite the right shape, so I just went in and corrected that with a little bit more white face paint, and also just went back over his nose because that had become a little bit too blended out. I also decided to add some expression lines on the sides of his nose because his face would be really bunched up from this massive toothy smile. And also a little bit of a shadow underneath the mouth too, and some more expression lines. Now moving on to the wig, I just used a cheap wig I bought off eBay, or was it Amazon? I think it was eBay, and literally just put it on the back of the head because he's got this really big exposed forehead, and I just glued a little bit of it down to form his widow's peak. And then I just backcombed it, put loads of hairspray on, and just coloured the ears of the bald cap that was still showing through, adding a little bit of black for some shade and depth and just to cover that wig line at the back there. Finally, I went back in with some more Snazaroo Clown White and just added a little bit of highlight on certain areas of the face. Now, I forgot to buy a clown collar because I've been so manic getting everything ready for the 21 days of Halloween, so I just stapled together some napkins, but I wouldn't recommend this because it did keep ripping and breaking off. So there we have it, the completed Pennywise and the completed second day of 31 days of Halloween. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. That is just a quick look at how messy my bedroom gets after I've filmed. Yeah, not a pretty sight. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below and let me know what you thought. And if you haven't already subscribed, then please do. I will see you tomorrow for the third day of 31 days of Halloween, and I just want to say thank you for watching, thank you for all the support, and I love you all. And if you recreate any looks, please don't forget to hashtag pretty scary so I can see.